Hey guys, welcome back to Restaurant Misfits. In this episode, I interview Sean Brennan, who is the CEO and founder of The Pie Hole. The Pie Hole is obviously a pie restaurant concept based here in Los Angeles. They have 7 stores here, 3 stores in Tokyo, and 1 store in Saudi Arabia. And in this episode, we talk about a number of interesting topics, from how he grew the business overall to how he has elevated his mindset from kind of like a grinder's mindset into an abundant mindset. And overall, what he did during COVID to survive, thrive, and take the business to where it's at today. I think you're going to get a ton of amazing content from this episode. And so without further ado, let's dive right in. Hi, my name is Brett Linkletter, CEO and co-founder of Dineline, a restaurant growth agency. Right now, you're listening to our podcast, Restaurant Misfits, where we'll discuss all things related to restaurant marketing, management, and everything else in between growing a restaurant business. Scaling a restaurant today takes much more than having grit and hustle. In this age, it's about utilizing the newest technology available, consistently educating yourself on new platforms and trends, and having a deep understanding of how this industry is so rapidly changing. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you up to speed with the latest and greatest through interviewing the biggest and best in the restaurant industry. Additionally, this podcast is also brought to you in collaboration with Total Food Service. For over 30 years, Total Food Service has provided the restaurant and food service industry with exclusive interviews to the latest news on products, trends, associations, and events. You can sign up for a free monthly subscription by visiting totalfood.com today. And from all the misfits over here, we hope you enjoy the show. Hey everyone, it's Brett, and I am sitting here with Sean Brennan, who is the CEO of The Pie Hole. Sean, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing, Brett?
I'm doing well. Feels good to be kind of back from the holidays, back in the mix. I can't believe it's already 2022. For everyone who is just kind of learning about you and hearing your name for the first time and The Pie Hole, can you just give us a quick intro on who you are and what you do and what is The Pie Hole?
Sure. Yeah, of course. So I founded The Pie Hole back in 2011 in the Arts District of downtown Los Angeles. The Pie Hole is a sweet and savory pie brand. We also have awesome coffee. And we are a multi-unit restaurant brand. We also have a growing wholesale and e-commerce business that gets us to your doorstep nationally really effectively. And we also have some franchises internationally in Saudi Arabia and Japan. So
Wow.
we stay really busy. And you know, we feel the same way about how the year kind of creeps up on you. 2022 is right off the heels of our best holiday season ever. You know, we're really happy to be coming, you know, through the pandemic and a lot of the other challenges that restaurants and food service and hospitality has faced over the last couple of years, really strong. We're just happy to be, you know, doing our thing, which is comfort food and making people happy a slice at a time.
Absolutely. Wow. So that's amazing. So you guys ship nationwide, are you just saying? Your product?
We do. Yeah. We partner with Goldbelly for that.
Nice. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. And I'm sure obviously during the pandemic, is that something that's new for you guys? Or did you guys implement that during the pandemic, or when did you guys start doing that?
No, we're actually pretty fortunate to have not only pickup and delivery infrastructure at our restaurants, but also national shipping ahead of the pandemic. So we leaned into it for sure, but we try to stay ahead of the curve on some of the opportunities in the hospitality industry, and you know, delivery, pickup, and national shipping were all some things that been working on for a while before the pandemic hit, and it's pivoted and grown since then, obviously. And we've also learned some things too, like, you know, local delivery doesn't really work. Restaurants don't make money on that because of the commissions and the increased packaging costs and the increased labor. So we still do it because, you know, it's about the utility of the brand to the consumer. We don't like saying no. Somebody's like, hey, we want a slice of Earl Grey tea pie delivered to your house at 8 a.m. Then we're not going to say no. But it's not a core business as much as it was during the lockdown phase of the pandemic.
I'm kind of curious, what percent of your business is, you said you use Goldbelly for that. What percent of your business is in national deliveries, and what percent is in store, and what percent is local delivery? I'm just kind of curious if you know that top of mind.
National shipping is probably around 5%.
Oh, really?
At the holidays, it's probably like 10%.
Okay. So I mean, the core of the business is still in store.
Still retail and wholesale. So we also sell our pies and our pie holes, which is another small 2-bite product that we have to grocery stores, high-end grocery stores across the country.
Okay, very cool. And so a big percentage going to that, obviously. Nice.
Yeah, but our core is retail restaurant.
Got it. And you, I mean, you said an interesting point, like local delivery just doesn't work. Because I've heard a lot of people like say either it does or it doesn't. And I've heard great sides from both, but I'm kind of curious on your side. I mean, obviously, look, margins is the biggest thing, right? Where it's just they're eating at that. And I've seen a lot of restaurants, I mean, especially during the pandemic, which they weren't ready for it. And then now they are 100% dependent on it. And then now they're dependent on a service that's not even theirs, right? And they're losing all their margins. Why are restaurant owners doing this then? If it doesn't make sense for most people, like why are they doing it? Like you said yourself, like I'll give someone an Earl Grey tea or whatever, right? Because they want it, but why? I mean, why not?
So we use the philosophy that we don't make a business and hope people find us. We meet our guests where they are.
Yeah.
Right. And our guests are on their phones. Right. So much in the way that my behavior changed during the pandemic, but also prior to that, was I was ordering lunch and dinner from my phone on Postmates, Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash, whatever.
Yeah.
And but also I was ordering, I preferred, because I'm a restaurant guy, I would prefer to direct order because I know what the commission and margin structure is. And so it was always very important to us to have an internal infrastructure of delivery and pickup that didn't rely on the commission structure of Postmates and Uber Eats and all the big four. Yeah. I guess it's big three now that Uber Eats and Postmates are the same thing, but
I know,
they, yeah. So but people are there, right? So what our goal was, what we learned pretty quickly and pivoted into was, if people are going to be interacting with the brand and ordering our items, we're going to try to convert them to our guests instead of a Postmates guest. So if someone's ordering through Postmates, we have no control over the interaction. We don't know how they market it. We're not the customer service. We're doing just fulfillment, right? And that we hate that, because our culture is a hospitality culture of, we strive to have the highest possible expectations on guest interactions. Great customer service. Like even in the early days when I first opened our first restaurant, it was always like, hey, we sell pie, we sell coffee, and we sell hospitality. Like our service is the third thing we sell. Like this is, and we still do that. But basically, Uber Eats is an entirely different brand. We're almost like wholesaling to them, and they're just reselling it. We have no idea what happens after it leaves. Like who knows, what's going on.
For sure.
So what we do is we put little bounce backs and marketing, and we do everything we can that if we're meeting somebody on Uber Eats, that we convert them to one of our guests. Come into the store, order directly from us.
And how successful is that, by the way?
Them.
How successful is
very,
that?
Very unsuccessful.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like, you can do all you can do, but I mean, I'm the same way too. Like it's 7:00 at night and my daughter is starving, and I'm like, not going to develop a new dinner behavior. Right. Like, where's that little card I got from that restaurant, and scan their QR code
Totally.
or whatever. I'm just popping open Uber Eats and I'm like, I need some mac and cheese here, or there's going to be a catastrophe, you know?
Yeah.
So we take, we take what we can get, and we're trying to convert people, but we're trying to meet everybody where they are. And it's a challenge. I mean, it's definitely a challenge.
Sean, I'll say this, like, it's funny because, like, a lot of people are in I think your same situation where they're trying to convert their customers from Uber Eats or Postmates to direct consumers. And it's like, they all struggle with the same thing. It's very difficult. I mean, and the thing, like you just said, we're all guilty of it. Like, God, I order so much on Uber Eats. It's pathetic. I'm at my office, right? We're in Culver City. I live in Venice Beach, so I'm just 10 minutes away. And I'm so lazy after my full day at work that I'll be driving home. I'll be driving home at a red light and order Uber Eats. So by the time I get home, shower, sit down on the couch, it arrives there. I'm so lazy. I don't want to stop even. So it is a problem. And I've always I've been thinking, so much about how do we combat this? And it's kind of like, we kind of can't. I mean, everyone's still doing it, right? You said that you want to reach customers on their phones, obviously, which obviously everyone is on their phones. I mean, I think the most recent stat I saw was that Americans are checking their phones at least 100 times per day on average.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Which is kind of pathetic. I mean, it's kind of insane that that's what we do now. But how else are you reaching customers on the platforms they're on their phones? What else are you guys doing to reach customers today? Maybe on like what are you guys doing to acquire new customers?
Yeah, it's been pretty successful for us to stick to the organic social media.
Mm-hmm.
Good content and good interaction matters,
Yep.
especially in the way that Instagram and Facebook, the algorithm really, it benefits you to have really organic and authentic interactions. So
Yeah.
you can spend a lot of money advertising on those platforms, but really just having an authentic social media platform, you have to have good content. Our social media manager is a professional photographer, right? And it's just helpful to have really beautiful stuff. It's also helpful to have really beautiful products too.
Yeah.
Right. And I think visually, that's still the thing that gets people to click. It's like, what's that click? And so it's kind of old. That's a new school, old school mentality, which is, keep it beautiful and authentic. We don't try a lot of gimmicks. We don't spend a lot of money on trying to acquire new guests, because our philosophy is we want to build relationships with people that are long-term relationships, so they keep coming back, right?
For sure.
It's like, oh, we're in Hollywood. There's a pie hole down there, but they already know, they're aware we can pop in for coffee and a bite or something. 100%. My mom's birthday is coming up. I know the pie hole ships nationally. I'm going to send her mom's apple crumble, right? Like through Goldbelly. It's this kind of relationship building that's very old school restaurants. Like, hey, when we used to manage restaurants, it was like, we have to make sure all these interactions and these touch points are so perfect so that you can go and tell 10 people and bring people back for happy hour and come back, on celebration dinners. And then it becomes your spot, right?
Yeah.
So that relationship building is still really important.
And you guys do. I'm looking at your page right now. I mean, you guys' Instagram is very impressive. I mean, you guys got the blue check. You're verified. You got 62,000 followers. Your content looks beautiful. This is a very difficult thing for most restaurant owners to do, though. I mean, it's an incredibly difficult thing.
I can't say that it's because I'm a genius. Because it's definitely not. I mean, it's more, we were lucky. We built a brand to scale early. But it was very intentional that we did things to be, I mean, here's the thing, pie and coffee, it's, the whole idea of the pie hole is these are family recipes. This is about Thanksgiving. This is about the dinner table. This is about people's family recipes and their grandma and the familial aspect of it. Yeah. And the heart of comfort food. We can't fake anything. You know, we can't have gimmicks. We can't do like we're called the pie hole. Like how serious and can we be, right?
Yeah.
So we're just trying to. We've always tried, especially on social media, it's just like do things authentically. Let's just be real. It's always just be real. And but luckily, you know, very early on, we were very lucky to get a lot of good press, and we had lines out the door. We still do, but lines out the door for years, right? And you know that builds a social media presence. Like our followers, those are like 10 years of followers, you know, that we had a blue check mark years ago, like really early, but because there's a long story behind that, because we actually were deactivated earlier last year because we got hacked. Through the process of, it really sucked.
Oh my God.
But we through happenstance, I happened to know somebody at Instagram, and it turned out that that if you already have a blue check mark and then you get deactivated, it's like almost impossible to get it back. So it's such a high standard to get it back,
especially at this point.
Yeah, exactly. But what they told us when we finally went through the whole process of reactivating was that, you know, we're called a legacy account, and because we have such a long-term followers that have such deep, authentic engagement that like you basically can't do that anymore on Instagram. It's too saturated, right?
Yeah.
And we see that with a lot of new brands that come out that have hundreds of thousands of followers, but they're still not as impactful.
For sure. That was my next question.
So we're really fortunate.
Yeah, because like, I mean, for us as a company, and you know, we work with we've done about 1,000 different restaurant concepts, helping them get new customers, bring them back, things like that through digital. Mm-hmm. But you know, a big focus for us was running a lot of ads on Facebook and Instagram, and you hear it every single time when you speak to a new restaurant. It's like, you know, I was big on Instagram. I did this, I did that. It was working, and now it's not. It was working, and now it's not. The algorithm. You know, it's like you keep hearing it. But you guys, it sounds like, hey, through all this, you've still had success. I mean, it's still working for you, right?
And it's a lot of it is luck too. You know, I mean, we got a check mark early, like
for sure.
It's not like because of anything special that we did, really.
I'm kind of curious. What about are you guys? I mean, it looks like Instagram is probably your top platform right now. Are you guys on TikTok yet? Are you guys using any other platforms in particular that you really see as benefiting the brand? Facebook's
still been pretty beneficial. I mean, you know, I guess my concept of management is, you know, we try to do a few things really well. Yeah. And I think that there's an opportunity. There are opportunities, I think, especially on TikTok, because the way that consumers are experiencing content shifts behavior, not only the experiential behavior of just like how they are online, but then that dictates to how they experience brands, and then those new relationships, especially with new consumers who, you know, a TikTok person, if you can convert somebody on TikTok to becoming a brand loyalist, that person is definitely not on Facebook or doing the same things on Facebook. They're kind of separate in that way.
For sure.
And, but we haven't we've done some tests. We do have a TikTok. We don't really produce a lot of content for it because it's a calculated, you know, evaluation on our end. It's just how much time and effort, because we're still a pretty small team, that we're going to put behind it.
How many locations are you guys at now? How many brick and mortar locations?
We have 7. And then there are 3 in Japan. Nice. And there's 1 in Saudi Arabia.
So 7 in the States here in California, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you got 3 in South Korea?
In Tokyo.
Awesome.
In Japan.
Amazing.
And it's actually ebbs and flows, Japan, because they do pop-ups. So sometimes there's 10, And then sometimes there's 3 core locations.
How did you end up in Saudi Arabia?
So I was in Saudi Arabia in December of 2020, mid
Yep.
pandemic, helping them open up their first unit. And Saudi Arabia is one of the most, I've been all over the world, one of the most unique places I've ever been. I mean, it
Yep.
is very, very economically and culturally anomalous, uh, relatively isolated,
Yep.
and yet perfectly straddles modern and ancient. Um,
Interesting.
and so what I learned, I mean, I'm not a PhD economist, but what I learned just being there and working with my partners, who I built a really strong relationship with,
Yeah.
is Saudis spend a lot of time eating out, and have spent a lot of time in the third space of restaurants, cafes. They drink a lot of coffee. They love tea. They love sweets, and there's a lot of business, family, and other interaction that takes place outside of the home and outside of the workplace too.
Yeah.
So it's a huge growing economy for hospitality for that reason,
Interesting.
and food service. So my partner there just was trying to find the next big concept.
Got it.
And he went to school in San Diego and spent a lot of time in the United States, and through mutual contacts found the Pie Hole, and we hit it off. And next thing you know,
Wow.
I'm in Riyadh hanging out.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's a trip.
And what's like the long-term plan for the company? You guys been around for 10 years. You're now at like 11 locations total. Are you guys gonna what's the next plan of action? Are you guys looking to continue opening more stores? Are you guys gonna push shipping harder, retail? What's the plan of action for further growth?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the real, going back to my philosophy, is like doing a couple things really well instead of trying to do everything all the time.
Yep.
Is what I've learned. It's been a decade, right? We've opened and closed restaurants, and we've grown really fast, and then we've slowed down.
Yep.
Um, our retail expansion is based on opportunity. We do not set retail growth goals. They depend. Like, we just opened up an Anaheim packing house, for example.
Mm.
That's a place I just kind of always wanted to be, and an opportunity came, and we made it happen. So it's moderate retail growth. I think I also don't believe growth at all costs is the most important thing. I don't have this standardized capitalistic point of view, which is like, well, yeah, we want 1 million locations.
Yeah.
And, sure, making money is great, and providing great jobs is like very fulfilling. I like the idea of delivering what I believe in is an amazing product to as many people as possible, because I think it's transformative and it makes their day better, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the best way to do that is to grow our production facility. So we used to have little kitchens all over the place. I don't know if you ever went to our location in Venice that was on Lincoln, but we had a kitchen there, and then we had a kitchen down in Orange County, and we had a kitchen in Hollywood, right? So
Nice.
I pulled everything into one facility so I could standardize it, and then I could
Yeah.
always make sure that there was exceptional level of quality. And then it's easier to do R&D and roll new things out and all of that stuff. So we still make everything by hand. And we're in the process of expanding our facility so that we can not only make our margins better, but so we can expand getting pie to people where, like I said before, where they are, right?
Yeah.
Retail is super expensive. The CapEx on that's bonkers. Labor is bonkers, right?
Yep.
And with the pandemic ebbing and flowing, especially in California, which is different than nationally, it's not a core opportunity right now. And if we can work with Whole Foods and Gelson's and other super high quality multi-unit grocers to get the very same product with the same quality without having to open a retail, then it's just that it's a much greater opportunity for us. And that's the same thing for e-com too, because we run our fulfillment center right out of our facility, which is where I'm
totally.
now.
But it sounds like you guys have done pretty well during the pandemic. I mean, especially for being based in California, because like, I mean, we work with restaurants all over the States, and I'll tell you just straight numbers, right? The restaurants in blue states have just obviously struggled a lot more than some of the red states, just because of the rules and restrictions. I mean, that's just all it came down to, right? It's like, hey, if they're getting shut down, it's just tough. But you guys, it seems like you guys have pushed through, which is amazing. What do you?
We've been pretty fortunate.
Yeah, and so anything in particular you think that helped you guys during this tough time? I mean, what was it that it kind of gave you guys that fortunate upper hand on some other restaurants?
I don't know. I guess I can only share with you my experience. Because, we're still founder driven.
Yep.
And, when March 2020 rolled in, we just had Pi Day, right? So Pi Day on March 14th is our biggest day, bigger than Thanksgiving, right? From a sales and volume perspective.
Very cool.
We just had Pi Day on the 14th, and it was like this whole thing, like, what's this virus? Like we're just trying to grapple with it. And restaurants weren't closing or doing really anything at that time. And it happened so fast that by the end of March, we were in lockdown. Right?
Yeah.
So I made the very, very tough decision through speaking with, we had, at that time, more than 100 employees. We probably had 130 employees.
Yeah.
Speaking to them in person. What do you want to do here? Because I was not going to ask someone to come to work if they thought they were going to die.
Yeah.
And by and large, these are mothers and people with kids and taking care of elderly and immunocompromised people at home. We didn't understand all of that then, but people were scared, very, very scared. I'm like, hey, come to work and make a coffee and sell a piece of pie was not an ethical thing as a leader to ask people to do without the feedback. And through that feedback, people were really afraid. And so I made the tough decision. We shut down for 6 months. We just shut everything down. We laid off as many people as we could so they could get unemployment. And then we kept some people on and paid, until we ran out of money. And we're being very observant in, how things were opening up and how brands were pivoting really into pickup and delivery, and talking to my friends and partners who are like, are you making any money? All of those things.
Wow. And
it was just more of an ethical, moral thing, which is like, it's a damn piece of pie. Like there's no reason why we need to be doing something. Like there are more important things in life, I
see.
I
like your stance. I think that's a good stance. I mean, you're like, hey, what do you want to do? Right. Rather than make the decision for them. Hey, how do you guys feel about this? I think that's incredible. Seriously. I don't think I've ever spoken to anyone else who just asked their employees that. And I think that's a good take.
Why, if what your employees are, what your team is experiencing doesn't matter, then I would question what's your corporate culture,
Of course.
Yeah. So, and I think in response to that, so when we reopened, it was very intentional. And I personally experienced the pandemic through great loss. It was traumatic. It was very traumatic. And I was probably pretty depressed. Is my company ever going to come back again? Am I going to get a paycheck ever again? Like,
totally.
It was very scary. Am I going to die? Like, I was driving around to all the locations and cleaning and getting mail. And it was like a ghost town. It was like World War Z.
Wasn't it crazy? And no traffic in LA.
Yeah, I could. I live up by La Cañada, and
nice.
I could get from my door to downtown in like 12 minutes.
Oh my
It
God.
was just absolutely, you know,
Yeah.
I felt a little bit like Will Smith and my dog driving down there, like,
Yeah, I Am
waiting for
Legend.
the zombies. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, but so when we reopened, it was very important to me and my reopening team. I brought back like the core management team and everybody.
Yeah.
We built this thing called Care for Crew, which was uh, it was operationally beneficial in the sense that we were checking people's temperatures
Yeah.
and we were doing like kind of a health check thing. We weren't required to. Restaurants weren't supposed to. Like, the city of LA and everywhere else so far behind and everything. There's like, well, just open up and don't die. Um,
Yeah.
our Care for Group program was like a mental health check-in. It's like, how are you
Wow.
doing today? Right.
Interesting.
Is anybody sick in your family? Like, how are you feeling? Like, do you want, like, and it was just a check-in. It was a check-in. It was like a process that we trained our leaders to be responsive to the changing mental health landscape of that. And hey, keep in mind here, we had the George Floyd protests, and there was
Yep.
social upheaval. I mean,
Yep.
where our locations and our iconic locations, like we boarded them up.
Yep.
And we also kept them open during the protests and gave out free pie and water to the protesters, right? We launched a program along with Care for Crew, which was a day of social action. We'd pay you for a day if you want to go and work on early voting, or if you want to express your rights. If you want to support a cause, we'll pay you for a day off to go and do those
Wow.
things, because we really wanted to make people feel heard, but also responsive to the changing attitudes and beliefs of what our teams were feeling, right? These are young
For
people who are
sure.
like, I need to go to work and get paid and have a job. And they need to believe that their employer cares about some of the same things they do too, or at least
Yeah.
give them space to care about it. And so with kind of that attitude, and then the Care for Crew thing was just we're just day to day, just like, how we doing, how we feeling,
Got it.
what can we do to help you get through all of this? And then same for us, because creating space at work for those conversations, I think, really helped us with much lower turnover, reopening all of our units more
That's my
effectively.
that's my next question, because I talk to restaurants every day, and one of the most common problems right now is employment. They can't find good people, straight
Yeah,
up. Is that an issue that you
same.
guys? I would say you guys are still dealing with that too.
More, it's extremely difficult on the technical side, like
Yeah.
bakers, right? Like cooks. Um, the other thing is, so
What do you
I
think is what?
argue,
There's a lot of reasons why this is happening, but why do you think is like the main
yeah.
like what is going on? Like, why is it so bad in your opinion?
So it's different here in LA
Yeah.
than it is anywhere else, right? In Southern California, especially.
Yeah.
But so there's a number of reasons for this. One is people left the industry. They just
Yeah.
left. They got other
Completely.
jobs.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, my barista job's not worth getting long haul COVID. So I got to
I
go,
see.
and I'm going to work in a call center. I'm going to go work for my dad, or I'm going to go and do some other
I
thing
see.
that maybe they're more, and we also give people the space to be like, hey, if this isn't working for you, we'll help you find another job. Right. Because we don't want anybody unhappy. We don't want anybody to feel like they're boxed in.
Yeah, you want
They
them to
want
be
to
there
have,
if they want to be there.
yeah,
Yeah.
some agency in their life choices, right? But so people leaving, right? It's more, it affects people more, I think, in a little. We're fast casual, right?
Yeah.
We're pie and coffee shops, but it affects more of the casual and fine dining folks. It's
Yeah.
like career bartenders, and cooks, and somms, and people who like spent decades getting perfecting their craft. And like, this is what they did. Like the titans of these things, they're just like, yeah, this is a good opportunity for me to go and do something that's more healthy for me in
I
general.
see.
Right. Or to, it was this break where it's like, oh, I can pivot. I can do painting, or I can be a DJ, or I can, do other things that
Yeah.
I
So
think it's
explore
more
other
common with
industries.
people switching up. Totally.
What else? What else do you think is kind of an issue?
Well, nobody who wants to work behind plexiglass wearing two masks in a hostile environment where you don't know if somebody's going to come in and scream at you for asking for their vaccination card. Like it's not
I know.
as much fun as it used to be. Like
Totally.
I really appreciate and feel for anybody in the hospitality industry right now. I mean, I travel a lot, so I know it's different in other states and other places too. It's like
Yeah.
some places it's like nothing ever happened. Hey, what's going on?
Totally.
But that's a big deal. Like people just don't want to do it, right? And there's
Yeah.
almost completely out of our control. Like these
Yeah.
are just this is what LA County's doing, right? So I think that's it.
It's just so wild. I remember, I remember when they got rid of the mask mandate and then they brought it back, and now there's like it seems like it's gonna be like this for like to infinity. Like who knows how long it's gonna be. There's no plan to get rid of the mask mandate. Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard
Yeah.
anything, and
Well,
everything.
and it's hard too because my perspective is different because I actually very lucky or serendipitously, I actually had spent a lot of time in Japan. I studied there, like on a special Fulbright program where I was there and I learned a thing and I came back and I was a high school teacher at the time, and then I went back again and I kind of taught my. It's a long story, but I spent a lot of time in Japan way before the pie hole, and then the pie hole in Japan happened, and I was going to Japan 2 and 3 times a year for a long time. Japan's basically been shut down since 2020 right now. But like I carried a mask with me in Japan. Like I wear a mask on the subway, and it's very, very common, especially in Asia. South Korea is another good example, but in Japan, it's just very, very courteous that if you're not feeling well, or you just put a mask on, right?
Yeah.
And I think that our culture appropriately, especially in food service or in places where we have more touch points and interactions with people throughout the day.
Yeah.
It's been politicized, but it's just like kind of courteous to protect your team and possibly protect your guests. Like I don't have a problem with it.
Is Japan back open though? I thought I read something that they're back open, or.
Yeah, it's still, I haven't looked recently. In the last couple of weeks, but you needed a business visa to get in. But they were opening back up.
Got it.
They also, in Tokyo, where there's 30 million people, they had like 6 cases yesterday. So.
Yeah. Wow. God.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Very interesting. So so like moving on from this topic, I mean, like, hey, that's, I think it's incredible how you guys have bounced back, by the way, after being closed for 6 months. Cause I mean, I'll tell you, for us, we probably lost about 300 concepts that we were working with. And we were just expanding over to the UK, and then they totally shut things down. Now they're totally back open again. No restrictions at all. But it's been so wild to see what's happened. But through all this, I guess, what are some interesting things that you've learned, and maybe what are some opportunities that you see now in the food space moving forward?
Well, I've learned a lot. I think, specifically in the last couple of years, I've learned to listen better.
Yeah.
And that's always been a core piece, but there's a difference between building a culture. We have this thing called servant leadership that is based on, we show up to serve each other so that we can serve our guests, kind of thing.
I like that.
But deepening that philosophy, like, what does that really mean? And a lot of times what that means is just really listening. And that started, deeply and authentically from the pandemic, which is like, do you want to show up to work anymore?
Totally.
So our perspective is, like I said before, I'm lucky in having discretion to run the brand and the company in the way that I think is best. And that comes from being doing things for the right reasons. Like we really want to have, I think it's effective in our space to intentionally start with, are we building something that is a good experience for anybody who comes into interaction with us, baking for us, working as a barista, or working in one of our shops, one of our corporate partners, our teams. Like, are you better having worked with us? Right.
Yeah, I see.
That was kind of like a 30,000 foot thing that was always kind of around. Now it's a core principle.
I like that.
I mean, Danny Meyer would agree. Like, don't build something people don't want to be a part of. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that regardless of having a different perspective from the pandemic or anything like that, it's why do something you don't want to do? Like, look at all this time we spend, like, talking to you or working all day. Like, surround yourself with great people, believe in your product, and like be really excited to show up to work, or just don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And my advice is, anybody in food service or hospitality or building brands or whatever, is like, don't do stuff you don't like. Right. I mean, it sounds stupid when you say it out loud, but like, I know so many restaurant folks. I mean, like, go back on the conference circuit, right? The restaurant conferences, you go all over. It's like 80% dead-eyed, beat up, like, restaurant folks who have been through the ringer already, and now they're just like doing everything they can to get this unicorn to make $1 billion or whatever. And it's like, they don't even care anymore, And
I completely agree, by the way. No, seriously, like, because I talk to a lot of restaurant owners every single day, and I see oftentimes, more than half of the time, they approach these calls just so defeated. I mean, you could hear it in their voice. They're tired. They got in at 6:30 in the morning. They're leaving every night at 12 a.m. It's just, they're so tired. They're defeated. They're just pushing, but this is not making progress, and it's just brutal.
Dude, yes, 100%. Also, that used to be me.
Yep.
This is not like, I was not like this prophet of like hospitality culture when I was born,
Yep.
Like, I mean, I'm not saying I am now, but I do, there are some things that I've learned and I believe in now. And like, my suggestion is, don't do that anymore.
So how do you,
right? Like,
how do you get out of that?
Just because you need boundaries. You need to build boundaries. I'm going to go to work at 8. This is what I do. I bring my daughter to school every single day. Yeah. Right. I don't look at my phone when I'm walking her to school. Right. Yeah. And that's my boundary. Like, that is my time with my daughter, because I'm never going to get that back again. My brand, like, or my daughter, like, what? Like, totally. Like, but there are people who are like actually making this calculus, and I don't blame them. It's like you're being held hostage, by your own brand or your own success or whatever. And if your systems, culture, and management team can't function without you grinding 16 hours a day, you don't have a culture, systems, or management. Agree. You don't have it. And you might not have a brand or a business. Totally. Because if it's all dependent on one person, you have huge problems. Totally. Right. And 50% of the time, it's in your head. Yeah. Because I used to be like that. And I had some epiphanies and some things happen in my life where I essentially was like, I'm going to peace out. I'm going to work 30 hours a week. I'm going to take some time off. I'm going to get therapy, and I'm going to do it in the middle of the day of the work week. Right. I'm going to take the rest of the day off. I'm going to go to the beach. Right. Like, I was making these drastic decisions, guess what? Everything was fine.
Yeah.
Everything was fine.
Well,
everything was
by
totally
the way,
fine.
I completely agree with what you're saying on all this. I mean, I think so many people, they get stuck in the grind, like a kind of a cog in the wheel. And you hear people like Gary Vaynerchuk, you just say, you just got to grind it out, push. Like I hate
I have a lot of opinions about him. Yeah.
I think, okay, the guy is clearly successful. Do I support what he says about just push, grind? No. Like, what the hell? And a lot of restaurateurs look up to him, by the way. I hear it all the time because he's got some video on YouTube that is circulating around that people bring up all the time to me about. I think he spoke with John Taffer or something. You've probably seen it.
There's another one.
There's another one with him?
No, Taffer's another guy.
Yeah, I just like, I see some of these people and I'm like, they're being pushed to do this thing that is just, it's never going to work. I'm kind of curious though, for you, because you said you've done this. And when I first started my business, I was in the quote, really grinding mode too. But you said some things happened to you that kind of freed you of that. You said you did some therapy, this and that, X, Y, and Z. What were some of these things you did? I mean, what if someone is listening to this right now and they're like, fuck, that's me. How do I get out of this? What are some of the things that maybe you can guide them in what direction they should go into to maybe get out of that grinding situation and culture? What are some things that woke you up to what could be possible?
Well, so, I mean, everybody has a different trigger for an epiphany, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's you read a book, you see a movie, sometimes you go through a life event, you have a great loss or, something happens, right? I'm one of those people. I'm a pretty typical like entrepreneur with ADD who overachieved in a lot of ways, and was very, very lucky to be able to kind of do whatever I wanted to do based on my path and my whim. And I also am obsessive about things if I'm excited about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can pivot on a dime and be like, I'm learning Japanese now. I'm going to learn corporate accounting. This is the most important thing. So that kind of stuff. So
I love that.
There is definitely not a self-help book. There's nothing that can trigger these things. The only thing I would say is, I mean, I'm an older man now, but in my 20s, I was very into Buddhism and Eastern philosophy, and I was hearing and knowing these things, but I wasn't believing these things. The idea of being present in a meeting, and just really listening to somebody, prioritizing what matters in life, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a very rare person that is built and wired to just grind and grind and grind. I've met these people. I've seen them. They scare me.
Yeah. They're scary.
Right. Yeah. And I think that if anybody is listening and you're lucky enough to have a brand, right? One restaurant or a billion, whatever, right? It has some scalability, right? There are some opportunities for it. Then you have an opportunity to do it in your own way that allows you to have a lifestyle that is healthy and that can have longevity. Because if your brand is based on you and how much you grind, your brand is doomed because you cannot do that forever, right?
Yeah.
So build in your corporate culture a healthy lifestyle for you and your team as well. You know, I'm very transparent. I'm like, I spend Tuesday afternoons with my wife. I'm like, don't call me.
Totally.
I don't care if it's middle of the week. This is my priority. And by doing that, my teams and my managers are like, oh, I'm going to spend time with my partner when I need to, I need to, so I can be good for the brand. So I can be healthy and not tired and nourished my soul and, in other ways too. And it's then you can have fun when you're at work, because you have similar values and philosophies. But I mean, take time for yourself. You just, the grind, The grind is it's
Yeah.
total bullshit. It's
It's
total
really
bullshit.
interesting. Like for me,
It's not worth it.
I just told you I got back from Brazil recently, and I was there for 3 weeks. I was there for a while, and I always feel like it's so healthy to take some of these trips once in a while. You said you travel a lot, quite a bit too, and like,
Mhm.
don't you feel like I read somewhere, yeah, I read this once somewhere, and I forgot where it was, but it was like the person you are today versus the person you are next year or 5 years from now. The only difference is the experiences you had, the places you traveled, and the books you read. That will change you as
Mhm.
the person, right? And I just think for
Yeah,
people
totally.
who, when you stay in the grind, I spoke to someone, this was like a year ago, but I always still remember it. He's like, I think he's only making like 60,000 a month or something. He had one store location, and he was like, I have 20 years experience. Da, 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 da. And I thought to myself, I was like, do you have 20 years of experience, or do you have 20 years of experiencing the same year 20 times in a
Yeah,
row?
over and over again. I
It's
know.
just so true, right? And it's like, it's crazy to me how people can continue doing the same thing over and over again, and then again expecting different results. Like what the hell, you
Yeah,
know?
it's really hard, but I think growth mindset philosophy is really important in our industry. It's
Yeah.
how you make sure your brand is evolving, how you as individual continue to evolve. You know,
Mhm.
um, the other is a fixed mindset, right? And to switch
Yeah.
mindsets, it actually takes structure and repeat behavior change and like all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I'm lucky to have I've been a growth mindset person my whole life. It makes me really hard to be around a lot. It's just kind of like,
Yeah.
what kind of like philosophical bullshit am I going to roll in with tomorrow? But
Yeah.
um, break out of the grind. Like,
For
I
sure.
mean, I'll give you one really good example. Like I studied martial arts like my whole life, right? Because I
Oh,
just
that's
like grew up
awesome.
watching Bruce Lee, and it was like one of those things. And then like kind
That's
of
awesome.
along with my Japan Eastern philosophy thing, I was one of those white boys who was just like, I'll be, kung fu master one day or something. But it
Yeah.
was about like a lot of it was about mastering my mind and my body,
That's awesome.
when having ADHD is like really can be really frantic and can be hard to concentrate and all those things. So it was about this obsessive mastery thing, right? So as part of going through this later, I'm 44 now. You go this later in life, kind of like, oh, what does really matter? Why is this grind? Like all these things. It's like I started kickboxing again. Like I hadn't kicked or punched anything in like many
Yeah.
decades, right? I was getting regular exercise, but like
Yeah.
that the brain growth and the way my synapses and my body reconnected revolutionized my lifestyle. Like I've just been happier. I'm
Yeah.
more plugged in at work, more focused on things. It's sometimes it's just simple life choices like that where I'm going to prioritize my mental and physical health so that I can be better when I'm around at work or in my personal family life.
Yeah.
I mean, these are things we've been hearing. Everybody, have
It's
been saying this forever, but like it's true.
that's one thing that I do love about the business community in Los Angeles in particular, is that I feel like so much of us are so in tune with understanding like how important it is to kind of check in with yourself, and how important your health is both mentally and physically, and how that will carry over into your business, right? I
Yeah,
mean, like
totally.
legitimately, like it's I mean, again, I'm in Venice, and it's like, God, every business owner I know here is like, some spiritual, you
Yeah.
know, meditation. I mean, one of my friends I saw this morning just in the gym, it was like, hey, I'm doing a little mastermind and Josh retreat for the weekend. We're gonna get some sound healers there, and it's all business owners. I'm like, count me in. It's
Yeah.
like we do that. It's just kind of our thing.
Experience. The
Yeah.
experience that you're not going to, it isn't it, unless, there's a lot, I have a lot to say about like what can happen with like cult psychology around
Yeah.
some of those things, but like the experience of just like experiencing something totally
Yeah.
outside of your wheelhouse. I mean, like it just there's nothing can replace that.
It's really interesting. Do you meditate on a daily basis, by the way, or anything like weekly basis?
What I used to do it a lot. Um,
Yeah.
my I probably only do it a couple times a week now. Um, I did this morning actually because
Nice.
my alarm wasn't loud enough, and I woke up an hour late and had to get my daughter to school. And then
Yeah.
Wednesdays are a crazy day for me, so it's like I'm just like, nope, I don't care what happens the rest of the day. I'm going to take 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So I do that. I think that's really helpful, but I think true meditation is it can be dangerous. Like you should do a guided practice to get into it. I wouldn't just suggest anybody to just like jump right into it, but
Interesting.
being present with yourself and having quiet time, whether that's
Yeah.
at church or just like staring at a wall or laying on the couch or whatever, I think that's a really good place to start. Just really kind of figure out what's going inside of yourself before you even
Totally.
try to clear your mind, I think is helpful.
100%. And just out of curiosity, we have a few minutes left, but as far as I'm just kind of curious with you guys, through the pandemic and everything where you are now, I know a lot of restaurant owners that I've spoken to as of recently, technology has now taken such a bigger stance in their business. Have you guys adapted with any new technologies in particular in the last year or so that you have really benefited from or saw benefit from?
Nothing new, nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
again, it's one of those things that I really wish that, uh, I had been a little less cocky when I was a young restaurant dude. But like inventory management, right?
Yeah.
Having really dialed in cost controls, but also, really understanding. We just opened a new location by you in the Gelson's in Santa Monica. We took over their bakery.
Oh, very cool.
They understanding grocery buying behavior is
Yeah.
very different than retail, right? And so trying to figure out what the mix between your product mix, your cost controls, and your margins, but also a brand new marketplace buying behavior,
Mm-hmm.
you have to kind of like spend some time really paying attention to that. But like from a tech point of view, we've implemented some pretty awesome systems that help us monitor that through flash reports and on a regular basis. And then Gelson's has been really helpful with that as well. But nothing, I wouldn't say anything new.
New in particular. Yeah.
We've got some new machinery and stuff in our
Yeah.
baking facility, which has made things taste better and more shelf stable and stuff like that. But
Interesting.
nothing fancy.
Got it. Got it. And then just last question is if you could step into my shoes right now, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't already? What's something that you just want to share with the audience?
That's a good question. You know what I always ask people when I'm like a trained facilitator and I do consulting, or not in restaurants but in other walks of life, where I get people together and we go through a facilitated process to like
Cool.
actually change mindsets and stuff like that. But I always do an icebreaker and ask people what's your alternate profession? Like if I'm in the metaverse or in like a bizarro world, what completely separate, what's your dream job? What would you do? Right.
Yeah.
So if you asked me that a few years ago, I always said sushi chef. Like I always wanted to be a
That's
sushi
awesome.
chef, like a super serious one. Right. But recently it's switched and now I'm very, very serious about collecting vinyl. So I probably would be a DJ because I grew up in the kind of 90s hip hop era and I was just like always, and I had, my two Technique 1200s and I had this amazing record collection. I sold it all so I could move to Ireland and live there. And now I'm trying to build that back. So if you asked me that question, I'd say
DJ. I love that, man. Sushi chef and DJ. That's awesome. Very, very cool.
Not the same time though. That would be messy.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's really cool. And then, Sean, anyone who's maybe listening today and was like, wow, how can I connect to Sean? What's the best way for them to do that online? How can they find you? How can they find the Pie Hole?
Web or Instagram. It's thepieholela.com and it's pieholela on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter.
Perfect.
Otherwise, you can message me on LinkedIn. I check that sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, if you try to connect with the brand through the website, there's various emails and stuff like that. It all ends up getting to me anyway.
Perfect. Awesome, Sean. Well, hey, that was awesome. Really appreciate your time. I got to check out your location in Santa Monica ASAP, maybe this weekend.
Cool.
Really great chat with you, and let's stay in touch. That was awesome.
Thanks,
Appreciate
man.
your time today.
Anytime.
Absolutely. We'll chat soon then.
Thank you.